A homeless girl won a rich woman's heart on Thanksgiving night. The rain-slick streets of Manhattan gleamed under the sodium glow of street lamps, turning puddles into shattered mirrors that reflected the indifferent hustle of the city. It was Thanksgiving night, and the air hung heavy with the scent of roasting turkey wafting from high-rise windows, mingled with the sharp tang of wet asphalt and distant exhaust. Ellie huddled deeper into her threadbare sleeping bag on the stoop of a brownstone in the village, her breath fogging in ragged bursts against the November chill. 22 years old, with callous fingers from sketching portraits for spare change and eyes that had seen too many doors slam shut, she wondered if this holiday would finally break her. A low rumble of thunder echoed like a mocking laugh from the gods, and she sighed, the sound wet and defeated, pulling her knees tighter to her chest. Across the street, in the warm cocoon of her chauffeured Lincoln, Victoria Kane stared out at the world through tinted glass, her manicured nails tapping an impatient rhythm on the armrest. 35, CEO of Kane Ventures, an empire built on luxury real estate that priced out dreamers like Ellie without a second thought. Her life was a meticulously curated fortress of boardrooms and black-tie galas, but tonight, after another sterile family dinner where her mother's pointed questions about grandchildren hung like smoke, the emptiness clawed at her. Why did success taste like ash? The car idled at the light, and that's when her gaze snagged on the girl, the homeless one, shivering like a leaf in the wind, her face illuminated by the harsh flicker of a nearby bodega sign. Something twisted in Victoria's chest, sharp and unbidden. She shouldn't care. She never did. But the driver's voice crackled over the intercom. "Ma'am? Green light." "Stop," Victoria said, her voice steady but laced with a tremor she hadn't heard in years. The car lurched to the curb, and she stepped out into the drizzle, her Louboutins splashing in a puddle that soaked the hem of her cashmere pants. The rain pattered softly on her umbrella, a rhythmic whisper against the city's roar. Ellie looked up, startled, her dark curls plastered to her forehead, green eyes wide with wariness. Up close, she was younger than Victoria had thought, her skin pale but freckled from too many sunless days, lips chapped and trembling. "You can't stay out here," Victoria said, the words tumbling out before she could cage them. It wasn't pity, not entirely. It was the way Ellie's sketchpad lay open beside her, charcoal smudges on pages filled with raw, aching portraits of strangers, capturing souls Victoria had long forgotten how to see. One drawing caught her eye, a woman alone at a feast, eyes hollow amid abundance. It mirrored her own reflection too closely. Ellie snorted, a bitter edge to the sound, wiping rain from her cheek with a dirt-streaked sleeve. "Lady, I've got no place else. Happy Thanksgiving to you too." Her voice was rough, honed by nights whispering secrets to alley cats. But there was a spark there, defiant and alive, that pierced Victoria like a splinter under silk. The conflict ignited in that instant, the chasm between them, worlds apart yet drawn inexorably close by the night's cruel mercy. Victoria, who bent markets to her will but couldn't command her own heart, extended a gloved hand. "Come with me. Just for tonight." Ellie's hesitation stretched, broken only by the distant wail of a siren and the soft hiss of tires on wet pavement. What harm in warmth? What trap in kindness? She took the hand, her own rough and cold against Victoria's warmth, and in that touch, the first thread of something dangerous unraveled. They rode in silence to Victoria's penthouse atop a glass tower in Midtown, the elevator humming like a held breath as it ascended 60 floors. The city sprawled below, a glittering beast indifferent to their stories. Inside, the apartment was a study in opulent isolation, floor-to-ceiling windows framing the skyline, leather sofas that sighed under weight, a kitchen island of marble veined like lightning. The air smelled of vanilla candles and fresh linen, a far cry from the urine-tanged doorways Ellie knew. She stood dripping on the Persian rug, arms crossed, feeling like an intruder in a museum. "Shower first," Victoria commanded softly, leading her to the guest bath. Steam billowed as hot water cascaded from rainhead fixtures, and Ellie stripped under the spray, letting it scald away the grime of weeks. Soap that lathered like clouds, shampoo that untangled her snarls, luxuries that made her sob quietly, the sound muffled by the rush. Emerging in a borrowed robe of Egyptian cotton, soft as a lover's whisper, she found Victoria in the living room, uncorking a bottle of Cabernet, her silk blouse unbuttoned just enough to reveal the elegant hollow of her collarbone. They ate at the island. Leftover turkey reheated with cranberry relish Victoria had salvaged from the dinner, paired with crusty bread from a delivery that arrived like magic. Ellie devoured it, fork scraping plate with unapologetic hunger, while Victoria watched, her fork idle. "What's your story?" Victoria asked, voice low, the wine loosening the edges of her reserve. The clock on the wall ticked like a heartbeat, steady and insistent. Ellie shrugged, wiping her mouth with the back of her hand. "Grew up in foster homes upstate. Mom OD'd when I was 10. Dad? Who knows? Art school dropout after scholarships dried up. Been on the streets 2 years now. You?" She met Victoria's eyes, bold despite the vulnerability, a challenge wrapped in curiosity. Victoria's laugh was short, hollow, echoing off the high ceilings. "Orphan too, in a way. Parents built the company, then built walls around me. No siblings, no mess. Just deals and dividends. Tonight, I don't know. Saw you and thought, maybe I'm the one who's lost." She reached across, fingers brushing Ellie's wrist, lingering a beat too long. Electricity hummed in the air, thick as the storm outside, where lightning forked silently against the clouds. As the night deepened, they migrated to the sofa, wine glasses refilled, the city lights blurring into a neon haze through rain-streaked glass. Ellie pulled out her sketchpad, charcoal whispering over paper as she captured Victoria's profile. The sharp jaw, the guarded softness in her eyes. "You're beautiful when you're not hiding," Ellie murmured, her breath warm against Victoria's ear. Victoria turned, their faces inches apart, the scent of Ellie's damp hair mingling with the wine's berry tang. A sigh escaped Victoria, deep in yearning, as she closed the gap, lips brushing Ellie's in a kiss that tasted of salt and desperation. It was tentative at first, a question posed in the dark, but Ellie answered fiercely, her hands tangling in Victoria's hair, pulling her closer. The robe slipped, exposing skin goose-bumped from more than cold, and Victoria's palms traced the curve of Ellie's waist, reverent, as if mapping forbidden territory. They moved like a slow burn, bodies pressing into the cushions, breaths mingling in gasps and whispers. Thunder rolled outside, syncing with the thunder in their veins, as clothes shed like old skins. Ellie's touch was raw, unpolished, nails grazing ribs, eliciting shivers that made Victoria arch and moan, a sound she'd never allowed herself before. Victoria, in turn, was deliberate, kisses trailing fire down Ellie's neck, thumbs circling peaks that drew whimpers like music. In the afterglow, tangled in sheets that smelled of lavender and sweat, they lay with the skyline as witness. Ellie's head on Victoria's chest, listening to the steady thrum beneath her ear, a rhythm more real than any she'd known. "This can't be real," Ellie whispered, tracing patterns on Victoria's thigh, the words heavy with the fear of dawn's cruel light. Victoria tightened her hold, fingers combing through Ellie's curls. "It's as real as we make it." But doubt flickered in her eyes, the weight of morning meetings and societal whispers pressing in. The rain had eased to a drizzle, tapping insistently on the windows like fingers begging entry. Dawn crept in like a thief, painting the penthouse in pale grays and golds, the East River a shimmering ribbon far below. Ellie stirred first, the unfamiliar luxury of the king-sized bed wrapping her like a dream she feared waking from. Victoria's arm draped possessively over her waist, breath even and warm against her shoulder blade. For a moment Ellie allowed herself to sink into it, the silk sheets cool against her bare skin, the faint musk of their night lingering like a promise. But reality nipped at her heels. Her backpack by the door, stuffed with all she owned, a stark reminder of the gulf between them. She slipped out quietly, padding barefoot to the kitchen, the marble floor sending chills up her legs. Coffee brewed with a hiss and gurgle, its bitter aroma cutting through the sweetness of last night's candles, now guttered to wax stubs. Ellie leaned against the counter, mug steaming in her hands, staring at the city awakening. Horns blared faintly from the streets below, a vendor's cart rattling with the promise of bagels and cream cheese. It was a world she'd glimpsed but never touched, and now after one night, it terrified her as much as it tempted. Victoria appeared in the doorway, hair tousled in a way that softened her executive edges, wearing only an oversized button-down that skimmed her thighs. "Morning," she said, voice husky from sleep and something deeper, crossing to Ellie with a grace that made the room feel smaller. She took the mug from Ellie's hands, sipped, then set it down to cup her face, thumbs brushing cheeks flushed with uncertainty. Their kiss was slower this time, exploratory, tongues tracing the contours of morning breath and unspoken fears. Ellie's hands fisted in the shirt fabric, pulling Victoria flush, feeling the rapid flutter of her pulse against her own. But the bubble burst with the chime of Victoria's phone on the nightstand, insistent, vibrating like an alarm for the life waiting outside. She pulled back, eyes darkening. "I have to go in. Board call at 9. The words landed like stones in still water, rippling unease. Ellie nodded, masking the pang with a wry smile. "World doesn't stop for strays, huh?" Victoria's laugh was forced, but she caught Ellie's chin, tilting it up. "You're not a stray. Stay, please. I'll be back by lunch." It was a plea wrapped in command, and Ellie, against every instinct screaming to run before the hurt could settle, agreed. As Victoria dressed, tailored slacks hugging curves Ellie had worshipped hours before, blouse snapping into place like armor, Ellie watched from the bed, sketching idly, capturing the transformation from lover to titan. Alone, the penthouse echoed with ghosts. Ellie wandered, fingers trailing over leather-bound books on minimalist shelves, spines uncracked. Thoreau on civil disobedience, Austen on hidden hearts. The balcony doors beckoned, and she stepped out, wind whipping her robe, the city a vertigo-inducing sprawl. Down there, people scurried like ants, Thanksgiving sales already blooming in store windows. Turkeys stuffed with deals, families clutching bags of excess. Up here, excess was the air she breathed, but it choked her with its sterility. Her phone, prepaid burner, battery low, buzzed with a text from Jax, her street art buddy. "Where you at? Hitting the tunnels tonight. Bring charcoal." Guilt twisted in her gut, sharp as hunger pangs she'd forgotten. She typed back, "Laid up. Rain check." But the lie sat heavy, and she pocketed it, turning back inside to raid the fridge. Eggs sizzled in a pan, butter popping like tiny fireworks, and she ate standing up, yolk dripping down her chin, savoring the messiness of it. Victoria's day blurred in a haze of conference calls and spreadsheets, her office a glass area overlooking the same river that mocked her from afar. But her mind wandered, replaying the night in fragments. Ellie's laugh, throaty and unfiltered. The way her body arched under touch, unashamed and alive. Colleagues droned about quarterly projections, but Victoria's pen tapped erratically, her thoughts a storm. What was this? A holiday fling? Or the crack in her facade she'd long denied? She dated men, safe strategic unions that dissolved like sugar in rain, but women? Fleeting college curiosities, buried under ambition's weight. Ellie unearthed them, raw and demanding. By noon, she was racing the elevator up, shedding coat and heels in the foyer. "Ellie!" Her call echoed, met only by the sizzle from the kitchen. There she was, barefoot in the shirt that barely skimmed her hips, flipping pancakes with a spatula wielded like a sword. Flour dusted her nose and she grinned, wicked and inviting. "Figured you'd need fuel after slaying dragons." They ate on the balcony, plates balanced on knees, syrup sticky on fingers that intertwined between bites. The wind carried the briny scent of the harbor, gulls crying overhead like jealous lovers. Conversation flowed easy at first, Ellie's tales of subway sketches traded for pennies, Victoria's dry anecdotes of mergers gone wrong. But undercurrents pulled. "What happens tomorrow?" Ellie asked, voice casual, eyes anything but. She licked syrup from her thumb, the gesture innocent yet charged, sending heat pooling low in Victoria's belly. Victoria set her plate aside, drawing Ellie onto her lap, the chair creaking softly under their weight. "Tomorrow we figure it out. Together." Her hands slid under the shirt, palms warm against Ellie's back, tracing vertebrae like Braille secrets. Ellie's sigh was a feather-light exhale against her neck, lips grazing collarbone as she shifted, straddling closer. The kiss deepened, hungry now, pancakes forgotten as forks clattered to stone. Ellie's fingers worked buttons free, exposing skin to the crisp air, nipples pebbling under her gaze. Victoria's mouth followed, tongue swirling in lazy circles that drew gasps, Ellie's hips grinding instinctively, friction building like a storm front. They didn't make it back inside. Right there with the city as voyeur, Victoria's fingers delved lower, finding Ellie slick and ready, eliciting a moan that blended with the wind's howl. "God, Vic?" Ellie breathed, head thrown back, curls whipping wild. Victoria's name on her lips was a revelation, intimate and owning. She moved with purpose, thumb circling the sensitive bundle while fingers curled inside, coaxing waves that crashed over Ellie in shudders, her cries swallowed by Victoria's kiss. Panting spent, they clung, the sun warming their tangled limbs. But as afternoon waned, shadows lengthened, and Ellie's phone buzzed again. Jax, insistent. "Gotta meet a friend," she said reluctantly, dressing in borrowed jeans that hung loose on her frame. Victoria nodded, masking the jealousy flickering like a faulty bulb. "Be safe. Keys on the hook if. You know." Ellie paused at the door, turning back, her kiss fierce and lingering, tasting of maple and goodbye. "This isn't charity, right? It's us." Victoria pulled her close one last time, inhaling the scent of her skin, faint soap and something earthier, uniquely Ellie. "It's us." The elevator descended, swallowing Ellie into the belly of the beast below. Streets buzzed with post-holiday frenzy, vendors hawking chestnuts that roasted with a smoky allure, steam curling like beckoning fingers. She met Jax under the Washington Square arch, his dreads tied back, paint cans clinking in his bag. "You look domesticated," he teased, eyebrow arched as they ducked into the tunnels beneath the park, flashlights cutting swaths through damp darkness. Graffiti bloomed under their hands. Ellie's lines fluid and emotive, Jax's bold and angular. The drip of water echoed like distant applause, the air cool and mineral tinged. But her mind wandered upstairs, to marble counters and maple kisses. Hours blurred, charcoal blackening her fingers, until exhaustion pulled her back to the surface, the night air sharp with frost. Victoria paced the penthouse, wine glass in hand, the vintage souring on her tongue. The board had pressed for a merger, profitable, soulless, and she'd agreed, voice clipped, but her heart wasn't in it. When the key turned in the lock, relief flooded her, chased by desire. Ellie stumbled in, cheeks flushed from cold and creation, black smudges like war paint. "Miss me?" she quipped, but her eyes searched, vulnerable. Victoria crossed the room in 3 strides, backing her against the wall, coats and bags forgotten. Desperately. Their mouths crashed, urgent and claiming, hands fumbling with zippers in the dim entry light. Ellie tasted of street grit and sweet rebellion, her leg hooking around Victoria's waist, pulling her in. They tumbled to the rug, a tangle of limbs and laughter, breaths hitching as fingers explored anew. Victoria's tongue traced the ink on Ellie's hip, a faded tattoo of a bird in flight, symbol of freedom's lost, and Ellie arched, whispering pleas that dissolved into cries. Later, sated and spooned under down duvets, Ellie's voice cut the quiet. "What if they find out? Your world. It eats girls like me." Victoria's arm tightened, but sleep came fitful, dreams haunted by boardroom stairs and empty streets. The week unfurled like a tentative truce, days bleeding into nights where the penthouse became their fragile sanctuary. Ellie claimed a corner of the studio space Victoria rarely used, canvases unfurling across the floor like spilled secrets, paint splattering in vibrant defiance against the neutral palette of wealth. The scent of turpentine mingled with Victoria's Chanel, a hybrid aroma that marked their territory. Mornings started with coffee shared over the island, Ellie's bare feet swinging from the stool, Victoria's tie half nodded as she stole kisses between sips, the bitter brew warming lips before they met. But cracks spiderwebbed beneath the surface. Victoria's calendar was a tyrant, late nights at the office bleeding into dawn returns, her heels clicking wearily on hardwood as Ellie pretended sleep, heart twisting with the echo of solitude. One evening Victoria arrived to find Ellie at the easel, brush strokes furious, a half-finished portrait of them both. Victoria regal yet fractured, Ellie wild and anchoring. "It's raw," Ellie said, stepping back, paint flecking her cheek like freckles. Victoria traced it with her thumb, smearing blue into skin, then kissed the spot, tasting acrylic and longing. They ventured out cautiously, bundled against December's bite, the city decked in twinkling lights that strung like promises across avenues. Central Park at dusk, snow-dusting benches like powdered sugar, their gloved hands linked as they crunched leaves underfoot. Ellie pointed out constellations peeking through sodium haze. "Orion's belt, see? Hunter lost in the stars." Her voice animated, pulling Victoria from the orbit of her phone's relentless pings. Laughter bubbled, genuine and light, when Ellie slipped on ice, Victoria catching her, their bodies aligning in a spin that ended pressed against a lamppost, breaths mingling in white plumes. Intimacy deepened in stolen moments. A bath drawn with bubbles foaming like sea foam, Ellie's back to Victoria's chest, water lapping gently as fingers traced collarbones, eliciting sighs that rippled the surface. "Tell me something real," Ellie murmured, head lolling back, eyes half-lidded. Victoria hesitated, then whispered of her first love. A summer camp counselor, stolen kisses in the boathouse that ended in tears and denial. Ellie turned in the tub, water sloshing, and kissed her slow, affirming, "No more hiding." Yet the world intruded. Victoria's mother called midweek, voice syrupy with concern over lunch at Le Bernardin. "Darling, the miller's son is divorced now. Charming. Available." Victoria's grip tightened on her fork, oysters glistening untouched. "Mother, I'm seeing someone." The line went silent, then crackled with frost. A someone? Or another distraction? Hanging up, Victoria stared at her reflection in the window, the restaurant's hum fading to white noise. She confessed that night over takeout Thai. Steamy curries that burned tongues and loosened guards. Ellie listened, chopsticks paused midair, steam curling like question marks. "They'll hate me." The rags to riches sob story, but queer? Double whammy. Her laugh was jagged, but Victoria knelt before her chair. Hands on knees, eyes fierce. "Let them. You're my choice." They made love on the living room floor, takeout containers shoved aside, the rug burning backs as hips rolled in sync, moans harmonizing with the distant wail of trains. Ellie's nails raked shoulders, drawing red lines like declarations, Victoria's mouth devouring the curve of her breast, sucking marks that bloomed purple as vows. Jax became a fixture, crashing one Friday with beers and beats blasting from a battered speaker. The trio sprawled on the balcony, city lights winking approval, Jax's stories of mural raids painting the night vivid. "Elle, you're glowing. This place suits you." His grin was knowing, but Ellie caught the undercurrent, envy? Worry? When he left, hugging her fierce, whispering, "Don't ghost us." Guilt gnawed anew. Victoria sensed it, pulling Ellie close in the dark, sheets whispering against skin. "You're not losing me. Or them." But sleep evaded, the clocks tick a metronome to mounting tension. Saturday brought a gala, black tie, old money orbiting like planets. Victoria wanted Ellie there as her equal. "Wear this," she said, unveiling a gown of emerald silk that hugged curves like a second skin. Ellie's reflection in the mirror stole breath. Transformed yet still her, fierce eyes, tousled hair pinned loose. The ballroom at the plaza hummed with crystal clinks and murmured deals, chandeliers dripping light like honey. Heads turned as they entered, arm in arm, Victoria's hand possessive at Ellie's waist. Whispers slithered. "Who's the ingenue?" Ellie held her chin high, sipping champagne that fizzed on her tongue, but the stares prickled like nettles. Then Victoria's mother materialized, pearls gleaming like judgment, smile ablade. "Victoria, introduce your guest." "Ellie Harper," Victoria said, voice steel. "My partner." The word hung electric. Ellie's hand squeezed hers, pulse racing. Margaret Kane's eyes narrowed, appraising the gown, the poise masking street scars. "Charmed. How quaint." The barb landed, and Ellie excused herself to the powder room, splashing water on her face, the marble cool against heated cheeks. Staring at her reflection, gown pooling like forbidden fruit, she whispered, "You don't belong." Victoria found her bursting in, heels echoing. "Screw her. You're everything." She backed Ellie against the sink, skirt hiking as mouths fused, desperate. Fingers slipped under lace, stroking with urgency. Ellie's gasp muffled against Victoria's neck. The door handle rattled. Someone entering, and they froze, hearts hammering, then dissolved into stifled laughter, adjusting hems with trembling hands. Back in the fray they danced, bodies swaying to strings that swelled like heartbeats. Ellie's head on Victoria's shoulder. Inhaling the scent of perfume and power, she felt invincible. But as midnight told, a colleague cornered Victoria. Whiskey breath, propositions veiled as advice. Slumming it? Careful, Vic, reputations stick. Ellie overheard, the words coiling like smoke in her lungs. The ride home was silent, tension thick as fog. In the elevator, Ellie shattered it. Is he right? Am I just a phase? Victoria whirled, pinning her to the mirrored wall, reflection multiplying their fury. No. You're my awakening. The kiss was bruising, teeth nipping lips, hands roaming with reclaiming fervor. By the time doors opened, buttons strained, and they staggered to bed, shedding silk and suits in a trail of conquest. There, under the canopy of stars visible through the dome, Victoria worshipped with mouth and hands, tongue delving deep, drawing Ellie to the edge with relentless precision. Ellie shattered, crying out, tears salting skin as aftershocks rippled. "I love you," she gasped, the words slipping unbidden. Victoria froze, then surged up, capturing her mouth. "I love you too." It was truth, terrifying and tethering. But dawn brought pragmatism. Victoria's assistant emailed, "Merger documents, signatures due." And Ellie's phone lit with Jax's texts. Opportunities for a gallery show, but it meant reclaiming her chaos. The idol teetered, winds of change howling at the windows. Winter tightened its grip, blanketing the city in a hush of snow that muffled the world's clamor, but amplified the echoes in their hearts. The penthouse, once a haven, now felt like a pressure cooker. Love steam building against glass walls. Ellie threw herself into art, canvases multiplying like accusations, each stroke a battle against the doubt that Victoria's world would consume her. One afternoon, paint-splattered and fierce, she unveiled a triptych. Their story in oils, the rainy stoop encounter, the gala's glare, a future imagined in tangled sheets under dawn light. Victoria traced the frames, fingers lingering on the lovers' entwined forms, eyes misting. "It's us." Flawed and fierce. They celebrated with rooftop wine, flakes swirling like confetti, the city a white-draped stage below. Laughter rang as Ellie built a snowman on the ledge, lopsided, crowned with Victoria's scarf, naming it class warfare. Victoria retaliated with a snowball to the chest, cold exploding in a gasp, then tackled her into drifts that piled against the rail. Rolling breathless, they kissed amid the chill, lips numb but insistent, hands burrowing under layers for warmth that bloomed hot and urgent. Snow melted on skin as zippers yielded, fingers finding slick heat despite the freeze, moans steaming into the air like prayers. But intimacy couldn't seal every fissure. Victoria's merger loomed, a beast demanding sacrifices. Late nights stretched, her return marked by the jangle of keys and the thud of briefcases, Ellie feigning sleep to hide the ache of empty beds. One such evening Ellie waited up, sketchpad abandoned, the room lit by a single lamp casting long shadows. "We need to talk," she said as Victoria shrugged off her coat, the wool heavy with office chill. Victoria sighed, sinking onto the chaise, rubbing temples where tension knotted like ropes. "Not tonight. Please." The plea cracked, revealing the exhaustion beneath her armor. Ellie knelt before her, unlacing oxfords with deliberate care, massaging arches that protested. "That's the problem. Every night." Her voice was soft but the words cut. They talked then, raw and unfiltered. Victoria admitting the merger's toll, how it chained her to a legacy she resented. Ellie confessing the gnaw of dependency, how borrowed clothes felt like borrowed time. Resolution came in compromise. Ellie would scout gallery spaces, reclaim her voice. Victoria would delegate, carve space for them. Sealing it, they moved to the bedroom, undressing with reverence. Buttons popped like whispers, fabrics pooling at feet. Ellie pushed Victoria back onto the bed, straddling her, hair cascading like a curtain as she kissed a path down sternum, tongue flicking navel, eliciting hitches in breath. Lower still, she parted thighs, breath ghosting sensitive folds before delving in, lapping with languid strokes that built to frenzy. Victoria's hands fisted sheets, back bowing, a guttural moan tearing free as climax claimed her, waves crashing in shudders that Ellie rode with her own grinding release. Renewed, they braved the city together. Ellie's hand in Victoria's as they navigated throngs at Union Square Market, pine boughs scenting air thick with mulled cider's spice. Ellie haggled for ornaments, her bartering a street-honed dance, while Victoria watched, amused, slipping cash when backs turned. At a stall strung with lights, Ellie bought mistletoe, twirling it overhead with a grin. Tradition demands. Their kiss drew stares, some approving whistles, others narrowed eyes, but Ellie deepened it, defiant tongues tangling in public claim. Jax's gallery lead panned out. A Soho space, owner intrigued by Ellie's portfolio. The meeting was a whirlwind. Handshakes slick with nerves, Victoria waiting in the cafe across, steaming latte clutched like talisman. Ellie emerged beaming, contract in hand. Opening in 2 weeks. It's happening. They celebrated with dim sum in Chinatown, dumplings bursting juicy on tongues, steam veiling their table like secrets. Toasts clinked, glasses of baijiu burning paths to bellies, loosening limbs for wandering alleys where lanterns glowed red as desire. Back home, euphoria fueled abandon. Ellie led, blindfolding Victoria with a silk tie, guiding her senses, feathers trailing spine, ice cubes melting on nipples to rivulets licked away, the contrast drawing whimpers. Victoria surrendered, bound wrists to headboard. As Ellie's mouth explored, teeth grazing inner thighs before sucking clit with pulsing rhythm. Ellie, please, Victoria begged, voice breaking, and release came in a torrent, body convulsing, tears streaking cheeks from the intensity. Yet triumph soured subtly. Victoria's mother escalated, emails laced with concern. Darling, rumors at the club. This dalliance. It's unbecoming. Victoria deleted them, but poison seeped. At a holiday party, catered trays of foie gras and flutes bubbling. Margaret cornered them, smile porcelain. Ellie dear, such talent. But charity begins at home, no. The jab at Ellie's origins landed like a slap, Ellie paling, Victoria's arms stealing around her. Outside in the valet queue, Ellie unraveled. See? I'm the punchline. Snow fell thicker, blanketing shoulders, the cold seeping bone deep. Victoria pulled her into the shadows of an awning, rain chains tinkling like chimes. You're my punchline? No. You're my plot twist. Hands cupped faces, thumbs wiping tears that froze on lashes, and they kissed fierce against the brick, tongues battling doubt, bodies pressing for friction that promised permanence. The gallery opening loomed, a beacon and battleground. Ellie painted feverishly, canvases alive with their narrative, colors bleeding emotion, forms intertwined in defiance. Victoria supported quietly. Framing sourced, wine ordered, her presence a steady hum. But boardroom pressures peaked. The merger signing was the same night. A clash of worlds Victoria couldn't dodge. Ellie understood, or tried. Go. Win your empire. I'll save you a glass. But as she dressed, black dress hugging like armor, hair swept in elegant disarray, loneliness echoed. Guests arrived. Jax with his crew, artists and strays mingling amid exposed brick and track lights. Laughter swelled, compliments on her work a bomb, but her eyes flicked to the door, willing it to open. Victoria arrived late, tie askew, lipstick smudged from hurried kisses to cheeks in the lobby. Signed. Sealed. Now yours. She wove through the crowd, finding Ellie by her triptych, hand slipping to the small of her back. Whispers followed, but Victoria ignored, pulling her into a slow dance amid the chaos, bodies swaying to indie folk strumming from speakers. Proud of you, she murmured into hair. inhaling vanilla and victory. The night peaked in euphoria. Sales tallied, critics nodding approval, but crested when Margaret swept in uninvited, fur stole dripping meltwater, eyes scanning like lasers. Victoria! A word. Ellie tensed, but Victoria squeezed her hand. Not without her. The confrontation brewed in a back office, air thick with turpentine and tension. Margaret's voice sliced. This is madness. She's using you. Ellie stepped forward, chin lifted. Love isn't use. It's choice. The words hung bold and breaking. Margaret faltered, then exited with a huff, door slamming like thunder. Alone, Victoria turned to Ellie, eyes shining. You were magnificent. They kissed then amid stacked crates and drying paint, hands roaming with celebratory fire, dress hiked, fingers plunging deep, Ellie's back against the wall as she came undone, muffling cries in Victoria's neck. The afterglow wrapped them, but outside, paparazzi flashes hinted at storms brewing. January's thaw brought slushy streets and slippery slopes, the city shedding its holiday husk like a snake molting skin. The gallery buzz lingered, reviews in the Times praising Ellie's visceral authenticity, commissions trickling in, but success's shine dulled under scrutiny's glare. Tabloids sniffed blood. Kane heiress holiday heartthrob from gutter to gala? Grainy photos splashed online. Ellie midlaugh at the opening, Victoria's arm possessive. Comments venomous. Gold digger phase scandal. Victoria fielded calls from PR firms. Voice clipped in boardrooms turned war councils. Damage control, her assistant urged, but Victoria waved it off, slamming her laptop shut with a crack that echoed her fracturing resolve. Home, she found Ellie curled on the sofa, tablet glowing with the articles, face pale as the snow melting outside. It's out, Ellie said, voice flat, setting it aside like toxic waste. The room smelled of cooling tea, chamomile's calm a lie. Victoria knelt, taking her hands, cold despite the radiator's hiss. Let them talk. We're real. But doubt shadowed her eyes, the merger's ink barely dry, shareholders murmuring about optics. Ellie pulled away, standing to pace, bare feet slapping tile. Real? To them, I'm the villain in your fairy tale. And you're paying for it. Her voice cracked, tears hot on cheeks, and she swiped them angrily, the salt stinging like accusations. The fight simmered that night, words flung like daggers over dinner. Pad thai gone cold, chopsticks abandoned. I don't need saving, Ellie snapped. But I won't be your secret shame. Victoria retorted, exhaustion fraying edges. This isn't shame. It's survival. They slept back to back, the bed a chasm, sheets twisted like unspoken regrets. Morning brought truces. Coffee brewed black as moods, apologies murmured over mugs, lips brushing knuckles in fragile peace. To reclaim ground, they escaped to the Hamptons, Victoria's beach house a weathered shingle relic, waves crashing like applause against dunes. The drive wound through salt marshes, radio crooning soulful blues that mirrored their moods. Arrival. Sand crunched under tires, air brined and bracing, gulls wheeling overhead with cries sharp as warnings. They unpacked in silence at first, then laughter bubbled as Ellie chased Victoria down the beach, skirt whipping, until they collapsed in a heap, grains sticking to sweat-damp skin. Evenings by the fire, logs crackling, sparks dancing up the flue, they bared souls. Ellie spoke of foster nights under thin blankets, dreams sketched on napkins, Victoria of boarding school isolation, love letters burned in dorm sinks. Vulnerability bridged them, leading to nights of rediscovery. Ellie blindfolding Victoria again, this time with beach scarves, trailing shells along limbs, their cool edges drawing shivers before warm mouths followed. Victoria reciprocated, binding Ellie's wrists with silk cords, teasing with feathers and fingers until pleas filled the room. Climax, a symphony of gasps and the ocean's roar. Back in the city, pressures mounted. Ellie's first commission, a portrait for a tech mogul, demanded studio time, her days lost to lightboxes and layers. Victoria's schedule mirrored, mergers morphing to expansions, her absence a ghost at meals. One night, Ellie returned late, paint under nails like battle scars, to find Victoria on the balcony, scotch in hand, skyline blurred by unshed tears. "Mother's cutting me off," she confessed, voice raw. "The will. Contingent on traditional alliances." Ellie wrapped arms around her from behind, chin on shoulder, inhaling the peaty scent of liquor and loss. "Then we build our own." But the words rang hollow against the tide of reality. Protests brewed. Jack's rallying for a street art collective against gentrification. Ellie's name invoked. "Come," he urged over burner calls. "Show them the real you." Loyalty pulled, but so did Victoria's hand in hers. The breaking point snapped mid-February. Valentine's a mockery. Victoria planned romance. Reservation at Per Se, roses and crystal. But Ellie, frayed from a critique that dismissed her as Kane's muse, lashed out. "I can't breathe in your world." She stormed out, coatless into the sleet, streets slick with ice that mirrored her turmoil. Bars blurred, whiskey burning throat, strangers' glances a temporary shield. Until Jax found her, hauling her to his loft, crash pads and chaos a familiar embrace. Victoria's calls went unanswered, panic rising like bile. She paced, rain lashing windows like accusations, the penthouse echoing with ghosts of laughter. Dawn found her driving aimlessly, tires hydroplaning through puddles that splashed like tears. Jax's loft. Graffiti walls and the stench of takeout. Ellie curled on a futon, eyes red-rimmed. "She needs space," Jax said, blocking the door, but Ellie rose, drawn like moth to flame. Outside, under a street lamp's sodium halo, they collided, words tumbling, sobs mingling with rain. "I thought you'd gone," Victoria choked, hands clutching Ellie's arms, bruises blooming under grips. "Never," Ellie whispered, pulling her close, their kiss salt-sodden and searing. In Jax's borrowed bed, urgency overtook. Clothes shed in heaps, bodies slick with rain and relief. Ellie's mouth claimed breasts, sucking hard enough to mark, while Victoria's fingers scissored inside, curling to hit that spot that made Ellie keen, release a deluge that soaked sheets. Morning brought clarity. Therapy suggested, boundaries drawn. They attended joint sessions, a neutral office with fern scents and leather chairs that creaked like confessions. Words poured, traumas unpacked, fears named. Progress was glacial but tangible. Date nights enforced, phones silenced, art and ambition balanced on shared calendars. Spring teased with crocuses pushing through concrete, mirroring their thaw. Ellie's second show sold out, Victoria's speech at a queer fundraiser, hand in Ellie's, drawing applause that drowned detractors. Intimacy evolved. Lazy Sundays in bed, fingers lazy tracing scars, mouths exploring with patience, orgasms slow burned for mutual massage turning erotic, breaths synced in waves. But Margaret's shadow loomed. A letter arrived, formal, folded crisp. Disinheritance confirmed, but a codicil. Prove your path or lose it all. Victoria burned it in the sink, flames dancing blue but ashes lingered. Ellie found her there, soot-streaked and shaking. "We'll forge our own legacy," she vowed, leading her to bed, where lovemaking was tender warfare. Kisses healing burns, hands weaving futures from flesh. As summer hummed near, a trip beckoned. Road to the Grand Canyon, escape from urban coils. Packing trunks with sundresses and sketchpads, they left the city behind, highway unspooling like ribbon. Stops at diners with pie that flaked buttery, motels with neon buzz and beds that squeaked symphonies. One night, under star-pricked skies, they lay on a blanket, Ellie's head pillowed on thigh, fingers idly stroking through fabric to bare skin, circling until Victoria quaked, stars blurring in ecstasy. Return brought resolve. Victoria stepped down from the board, pivoting to ethical investments. Ellie launched a foundation, Art for the Displaced. Love solidified, not in grand gestures but quiet anchors. Morning coffees, evening walks where hands linked against the world. Yet climax brewed. Margaret's health faltered, a call pulling Victoria to the bedside. Ellie accompanied, grip fierce. The confrontation. Hospital sterile, beeps a metronome to recriminations. "You've ruined her," Margaret wheezed, but Victoria stood tall. "She's saved me." Ellie added softly, "Love isn't ruin. It's rebirth." Margaret's eyes, milky with age, softened fractionally, a nod the closest to blessing. Autumn circled back, leaves carpeting streets in crimson and gold. A year since that fateful night. The penthouse, once sterile, now breathed life. Ellie's canvases on walls, mismatched mugs from road trips on shelves, the air perennially scented with coffee and canvas glue. Their rhythm was honed, mornings tangled in sheets, sunlight slanting through blinds to kiss skin still flushed from dawn lovemaking, fingers lingering in afterglow, tracing lazy patterns that sparked anew. Victoria's pivot thrived. Her firm greenlit affordable housing, blueprints unrolling like hope across conference tables. Ellie mentored at shelters, workshops where pencils whispered stories, her own scars fuel for empathy. Together they hosted fundraisers, rooftop soirees with string lights twinkling like allies, speeches intertwined. Victoria's polished poise yielding to Ellie's raw passion, hands clasped on stage, rings glinting, simple bands exchanged in a desert vow under canyon vastness, officiated by a wandering artist with guitar strums for hymns. Challenges lingered but weathered. Tabloid echoes faded to irrelevance. Shareholders grumbled but profited. Jack's became family, his murals adorning their lobby. Toasts at barbecues where smoke curled lazy from grills. Laughter drowning old ghosts. Intimacy deepened. Anniversaries marked with sensory feasts. Blind tastes of gourmet paired with Ellie's drawings. Bodies painted in edible inks licked clean amid giggles turning moans. Peaks reached in tandem, breaths a chorus of forever. Margaret's decline accelerated. Hospice a quiet vigil. Victoria visited weekly, Ellie in tow, reading aloud from Ellie's book. Sketches compiled, stories of resilience. One evening, as monitors beeped soft dirges, Margaret gripped Victoria's hand, voice a rasp. "I was wrong. She's home." Tears traced wrinkles, and in that release, forgiveness bloomed. Margaret passed at dawn, the sky streaking pink as promise, leaving a revised will. Not riches but shares rerouted to their causes, a legacy redeemed. Grief wrapped them gentle, funerals a blur of black veils and condolences, but homecoming healed. Curled on the sofa, Ellie's sketches of Margaret, fierce in youth offering absolution. Nights turned tender, bodies seeking solace. Slow grinds under quilts, mouths mapping grief's edges, releases cathartic, tears mingling with sweat. Thanksgiving returned full circle. They hosted. Jackson strays from Ellie's programs, mismatched chairs around a table groaning with turkey carved juicy, pies oozing cinnamon steam. Laughter swelled, toasts raised to found families. Wine flowing warm as blood. After, as dishes clattered in sinks, Ellie pulled Victoria to the balcony, city aglow below, the same skyline that once divided them now uniting. Under crisp stars Ellie knelt, not in supplication but offering. A locket, engraved inside with hearts find home. "A year ago you gave me shelter. Now I give you this, us always." Victoria's breath hitched, a sob sigh escaping as she drew Ellie up, kissing with depth that spanned seasons. Hands roamed familiar paths, unbuttoning coats to bare skin to the chill. Fingers delving with practiced love, circling and thrusting until climaxes crested like waves, cries swallowed in embraces. In the quiet after, wrapped in each other's arms, the city hummed lullabies, horns distant, winds whispering through fire escapes. Ellie traced Victoria's jaw, voice soft. "From homeless to heart, our story." Victoria smiled, eyes reflecting lights like beacons. "And the ending? Open. Meaningful. Ours." They turned inside, door clicking shut on the night that started it all. Stepping into a life woven from threads of chance and choice. Dramatic, emotional, eternally theirs. The hook that snared them on that rainy stoop had become the anchor, holding fast against any storm, proving love's win not in wealth or worlds, but in the quiet victory of two souls aligned.